Hey guys, Mr. Backerberg here. In this video, we're going to look at graphing using slope-intercept form. Now, when we're talking about an equation being in slope-intercept form, what that means is that we've solved the equation to get y all by itself, and then we end up with something on the right-hand side that looks like mx plus b. And these m and b values will end up being numbers in your equation. Now, we've also called this function form for our equation. When we get our equation written in this slope-intercept form, it's really easy for us to identify two pieces of information that are important to the equation itself and to graphing out the equation. The m value in the equation will be the slope of your line, and the b value on the far right-hand side, that's your y-intercept. So for example, if we had the equation, say we got y equals 2x plus 7, then the slope of our line would be 2, and the y-intercept of our line would be 7, or we could say it's at the point 0, 7. So we're going to look at a few examples where we are given equations, and then based on the equation, we want to identify its slope and its y-intercept. So the first thing I want to remind you is that we're looking for equations to be written as y equals mx plus b. The m value is the slope. So the m value is the number that's always in front of the x. That's your slope. And the b value on the end corresponds with your y-intercept. So in this one where we have the equation y equals 3x plus 4, if I want to identify the slope, I'm looking at the number in front of the x. So we have a 3. So this equation has a slope of 3. If we want the y-intercept, we're looking for the b value on the end. And this has a b value of 4. So the y-intercept of your graph would be at the point 0, 4. As we look at this example over here, we've got y equals 5x minus 3. The slope of your line is 5, because that's the number in front of the x, and your y-intercept on the end. Now this says minus 3, so your y-intercept is going to be at negative 3. So that's the point 0, negative 3. As we look at this next example, we still want to identify the slope and the y-intercept, but there's a little bit of a problem with our equation. The last examples that we've been looking at already had the equation in our y equals mx plus b slope-intercept form. This equation is not written in y equals mx plus b form. So what we need to do first is get this so that y is all by itself in the equation. Then we're going to be able to identify the m and b values to tell us the slope and the y-intercept. So the very first thing I want to do is work on getting this y alone. So I want to take everything that doesn't have y in it and move it over to one side of the equation. So I'm going to start with this 3x that I see on the left-hand side. In order to take this 3x and move it across the equal sign here, I'll need to subtract 3x from both sides. So on the left-hand side, the 3x and the minus 3x will cancel each other out, leaving me with negative 3y equals. Now on the right-hand side, these are not like terms, so I can't put them together. So it's going to be negative 3x plus 12. Now I need to get rid of the negative 3 that's in front of this y. Right now there's multiplication happening. In order to get rid of the multiplying, I'm going to have to divide everything in the equation by negative 3. So on the left-hand side, the times negative 3 and divided by negative 3 cancel each other out, leaving us with just y equals. On the right-hand side, when we take negative 3 divided by negative 3, we get 1x. And when I take 12 and divide it by negative 3, I get minus 4. Now, as I'm looking at identifying the slope and the y-intercept, to find the slope, we look for the number that's in front of the x. So here we have a 1. So the slope of this line is 1. For the y-intercept, we're going to look at the b value. The b value in this equation is negative 4, meaning that the y-intercept is at the point 0, negative 4. As we look at our next example over here, we've got x plus 4y equals negative 8. Again, we want to get this written in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b form. So I want to work on getting the y all by itself. The first thing I'm going to do is subtract this x over to the right-hand side. So those x's on the left-hand side will cancel out, leaving us with 4y equals negative x minus 8. Now I need to divide everything by the 4 in here to try to get that y all by itself. So we get y equals. Now there's not a number written in front of this x right now, but there's this negative sign out there. So it's really like having a negative 1 in there. And when we take negative 1 divided by 4, that doesn't reduce down at all. So I'm going to leave it as negative 1/4 x. Now on the end, when we have negative 8 being divided by 4, that's going to be negative 2. Now as we look at identifying the slope here, the number in front of the x is negative 1/4. And then our b value on the end is negative 2. So we would say that the y-intercept is at the point 0, negative 2. A couple more examples to wrap things up. Again, we want to identify the slope in the y-intercept by first rearranging this equation to get it in slope-intercept form. So we're trying to get the y alone. So I'm going to take this 3x that's currently on the left-hand side, and I'm going to move it over to the right-hand side by subtracting 3x on both sides. So that 3x and negative 3x will cancel out on the left-hand side, leaving us with negative y equals negative 3x plus 6. Now we need to get rid of this negative sign that's in front of our y. So we're going to divide everything by negative 1 in here. That's going to help us change the signs on everything. So that negative and that negative 1 on bottom will cancel each other out. So we just get y equals. If we take negative 3 and divide it by negative 1, we get positive 3x. And if we take a positive 6 and divide it by negative 1, we get a negative 6. Now identifying the slope in here, slope is the number in front of the x. So that's going to be 3. And the b value on the end, that's a negative 6. So the y-intercept of our graph would be at the point 0, negative 6. As we look at our last example in here, we want to get the y alone again. I'm going to add this 18 over to the left-hand side. So we would get 2x plus 18 equals 3y. I want the y to be alone, so I'm going to divide everything in here by 3. So we get 2/3 x plus 6 equals y. Now typically we like to have the y on the left-hand side. So what we can do with this, now that we have the y isolated, we can just flip-flop the entire equation around. So that would say y equals 2/3 x plus 6. Now the m value in here, the slope is going to be that 2/3 that's in front of the x. The b value is 6, meaning that the y-intercept would be at the point 0, 6. That's going to be it for this video. Thanks for watching.